5 people killed in a crash involving 3 tractor trailers here on I-95. New information about the victims and how investigators say this unfolded.
Plus, in the WRAL Live Center, minute-by-minute updates on the traffic delay.
It's the third WRAL Weather Alert Day in a row, with another on the way tomorrow. I'll break down the biggest threats to expect tonight, including the flood watch and what to expect tomorrow.
Then, caught on camera, 2 men attempting to break into a Raleigh home with a woman and her 5 kids inside.
Now, breaking news from WRAL. Coverage you can count on.
We begin with that breaking news on I-95. Just a horrific scene here. 5 people were killed in a fiery crash involving 3 tractor trailers. Thanks for being with us here. I'm Ashley Rowe.
And I'm Dan Haggerty. The northbound lanes of the interstate right near the Wilson-Johnson County line are still closed at this point, if you can believe it. This has been all day out there, and they say it could stay like that for hours more into tonight. We have live team coverage for you. We've been monitoring any new developments from the scene and tracking ways to get around all of this from the Live Center. We're going to begin with Aaron Thomas, though, live along the highway. Aaron.
Yeah, Dan, and the newest update that we can provide for our viewers on air and online at 7 is that we have seen crews working to tow away some of the vehicles involved in this deadly crash here on I-95. Obviously, they still have a ways to go. This is an hours-long effort with them trying to clean up some of the debris that's left over. And then just to give you a sense of the impact over here, we can see one of the signs that was ripped up out of the ground as a result of one of the vehicles hitting it. It reads mile marker 113. So again, some of the debris that these crews are working on cleaning up. This is what we know so far about the investigation. A state trooper telling WRAL News that a tractor trailer carrying orange juice failed to stop for slowing traffic due to a lane closure. The tractor trailer then collided with 2 cars and a second tractor trailer carrying eggs. What we know so far is that 3 people died in one car and then 2 people died in another car. Now the truck carrying orange juice caught fire and was destroyed, and that is really the bulk of all the damage that you see out here on I-95. Just a while ago, WRAL interviewed Kenley's fire chief about the expansive emergency response. Take a listen.
And when we arrived, we had a tractor trailer that was pretty much totally involved with fire. There was a couple other tractor trailers that were involved, and there were some passenger vehicles that were involved.
And back out here live on I-95, you can see, again, an hours-long effort. We just heard back from NCDOT. How long could cleanup efforts take? It looks like we're still on track for this to open up at 11 o'clock tonight, but that's just an estimate. It likely won't be reopened until overnight or tomorrow morning. I want to send things over to Brian Schrader with what he's monitoring in the WRAL Live Center. Brian?
Aaron, just getting new information from our photographer at the scene there, who was driving down southbound 95, went down past the Kinley exit and saw that I-95 northbound still is closed there in Kinley at exit 107, as you see here in that picture from the NCDOT camera at the scene. Let's talk about the best way to get around this using our traffic map here. This is that Kinley exit at 107. It's US 301. DOT is taking all of that traffic on 301 through Lucama into South Wilson. From there, you pick up 587 and you rejoin 95 northbound on the other side of that closure. Now, the DOT is estimating that cleanup likely will last well into the night. So join us at 10 and 11 for live updates. Aaron Thomas will be out there. We'll be watching those traffic sensors on WRAL News again at 10 and at 11.
What an incredible impact. Just horrible scenes there. We are tracking more storms tonight into tomorrow. You are looking live at the radar right now. Most of our viewing area is under a level 1 risk for severe weather. And that is why we have declared both days a WRAL Weather Alert Day. Tomorrow, storms will be widespread. Meteorologist Kat Campbell is in the WRAL Severe Weather Center with when we could see some flooding as well, Kat.
And we've got that threat even with us tonight, but especially in the day tomorrow when we've got more widespread storms. We are tracking a severe storm that's just about to cross into Mecklenburg County, Virginia. A severe thunderstorm warning there until 7:45. This includes Carr Lake, Chase City, South Hill. The primary threat, damaging winds, but we watched earlier as there was a tornado warning issued just west here. And the rotation here has really broadened out in a significant way. So that's good news. We have our eye on it, and we'll continue to watch it for you. Elsewhere, a few pop-up showers, but nothing widespread yet. We're going to be watching this rain in South Carolina lifting into the area this evening and tonight, and then a lot more behind it down in Alabama and Georgia that's going to arrive here tomorrow. It's a level 1 threat for severe storms from the Triangle north today and into tonight. The flood watch is in effect today and will last throughout the day tomorrow. 1 to 2 inches of rain likely, localized 3-inch totals possible. Flooding one of our main concerns tomorrow. I'll walk you through when we could break out of this pattern coming up.
All right, thank you, Kat. Here is a headline that will get some attention from you. Wake County school officials say a student brought a grenade to school. This happened today at Laurel Park Elementary School. School officials say the student had what they are describing as an older deactivated grenade in their backpack, intending to show it to the classmates in the class. They do not believe the student had any malicious intent, but disciplinary action was taken.
A FedEx driver is charged with stealing a dog and then dumping it on the side of the road where it was found dead. Harnett County officials say 44-year-old Kimani Marshall surrendered yesterday. Deputies say the 3-year-old French bulldog got loose from her home near Highway 421 earlier this month. Such a cutie. Witnesses saw the delivery driver pick up the dog and put her in the truck. Her remains were found days later on the side of the road. Marshall charged with larceny of a dog, possession of stolen property, and animal cruelty. He has bonded out of jail.
New video now showing 2 masked men in the backyard of a Raleigh home attempting to break in, police say, while 5 children were inside. WRAL Sean Gallagher spoke to the homeowner today about those terrifying moments that she could only witness on her phone through the security surveillance app.
A knock at Renee's door Tuesday didn't seem out of the ordinary.
My husband dismissed it, thinking, okay, maybe he's at the wrong house.
Renee and her husband were at work when the app on their phone alerted them of the person at their front door. They didn't recognize him, so didn't think anything of it. About 15 to 20 minutes after the knock at their front door, 2 men appeared in their backyard. And the only reason they knew was because they have a camera in the back that caught everything.
Hurry up and get home now.
Renee asked that we hide her identity since police are still looking for these 2 men. Her husband was over 30 minutes away at work. He had to rely on Renee to get home to their kids.
I know my husband felt, helpless because he was so far away. I was terrified. It was like a nightmare come true for me.
The cameras stopped recording while the 2 men kicked in their door, destroying the door frame. They ran off before Renee or the police got to her house. Renee's 5 kids were inside, alone, all of them under the age of 12. And as a veteran and a concealed carry holder, she was ready to take action if need be.
I could have literally taken somebody's life, especially with the mindset that I was in about protecting my children.
While she feels safe in her neighborhood, this part of the city has seen the largest number of home break-ins over the last 4 years. More than a quarter of all home break-ins since 2020 have happened in the Southeast Police District, with 114 already this year. And with this man still out there, Renee is still uneasy.
I feel nervous, I'm paranoid, a little bit traumatized.
The smudges on this door are from police trying to lift a print off of it to try to identify who was responsible. This, paired with the very clear video from Renee's camera, have her hoping someone will recognize who's responsible. If you recognize anybody in these videos, you're asked to call Raleigh Police. Sean Gallagher, WRAL News, Raleigh.
And this is Brian Schrader in the WRAL Live Center. We are monitoring live pictures right now from Charlotte at Bojangles Coliseum, where former President Donald Trump is holding his first rally since President Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 race. And not surprisingly, Mr. Trump is now focused on the presumptive Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris. Listen to this.
So now we have a new victim to defeat. Lion Kamala Harris. Lion, L-Y-I-N apostrophe. The most incompetent and far-left vice president in American history.
The former president has been speaking now for about 50 minutes, and you can watch this live on WRAL.com and on the WRAL News app.
All right, Brian. Yes, on the same night Trump is in our state, President Biden is set to speak from the White House in actually less than an hour for the first time since dropping out of the presidential race. I want to bring in WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie to talk more about these major moments unfolding. I, like you, was listening to former President Trump speaking in Charlotte. I want to just read you a quote that that really stuck out to me. He said, If you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice. They don't want me to be nice. Curious to get your take on the messages that you are hearing from him that stick out to you.
Well, you know, it was just a couple of weeks ago, right, that we were all talking about lowering the temperature of the rhetoric after the shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania, and rightfully so. But and we kind of got a slightly different tone from Trump at the convention. Those days are gone. I think we're right back to where we were. We heard what he was calling Kamala Harris, and he also said that she was unfit to lead and would destroy the country. So some serious rhetoric there. He also talked about the shooting in Pennsylvania. He talked about, he praised the Secret Service agents who helped to protect him. He called it a terrible time, and he said, you know, of course, remembered the people who were killed and injured there. And he actually accused the Democrats of being to blame for that because they had labeled him a threat to democracy. He said it's the other way around.
Would you say that this speech tonight is really setting the tone? This is the first time that we're hearing from him since Sunday, you know, in a solo address here. Calling her, you know, radical left lunatic, absolutely terrible. Borders are. We know that that's not true. Is this setting the tone for the next few months?
I think it's a return to form. This is the Trump we're used to seeing on the campaign trail. He's simply talking more about Kamala now, although he was talking about Joe Biden today some too. So.
Let's talk about what we can expect to see in the next, I guess, 50 minutes when President Biden addresses the nation.
You know, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to tune into this. I think he's going to spend a lot of his time talking about why he made the decision he made. He's going to talk about the need to protect democracy and the fact that he's stepping down because he was afraid that he might lose to Trump, right? I think you're also going to hear him pumping up Harris as his chosen nominee. And I think you're going to hear him make the case to the American people that he is still sound of mind. He's not going anywhere, and he is able to complete the rest of his term of service.
Yep. Okay. We will wait and see in just about 50 minutes. There we have a live shot that you were just looking at there of the president. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Biden's going to be addressing the nation once again at 8 o'clock tonight. You can watch it right here on WRAL.
Coming up here during your 7 o'clock newscast, still ahead, we are going to go in depth on Project 2025 for a third time as we go into the mailbag. We've been reading a lot of your questions. We're going to address some of them next. Plus, caught on camera, a stolen car slams into a vape shop in Wake County. What we're learning about what the person was after and the investigation. Tonight, let's wrap up our series on Project 2025. I'm not saying there won't be any spin-offs or reboots in the future, but who doesn't love a good trilogy? Last week, we talked about who is behind Project 2025 and the history of political think tanks. Then we compared some of the controversial elements of 2025 with Trump's Agenda 47, so things like Medicaid, VA benefits, abortion, and so on. Tonight, let's end things how all great trilogies do, focusing on the story's bigger overarching themes. For Project 2025 and Trump's campaign, it's been about limits of presidential power. That was the cliffhanger of our last segment. I mentioned Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. It says the executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States, which has spurred a legal theory that basically says the president is the boss. Now, what Republicans and Trump want to figure out is how that theory becomes policy with ideas like this.
I want to close the Department of Education and move education back to the states where it belongs.
So give the states more power and the federal bureaucracy less. These ideas aren't new. This has been kind of a Republican battle cry for generations. These ideas are all over Project 2025. They want to disband the Department of Education, NOAA, and the Department of Homeland Security. They're also talking about exploring some alternatives to the Federal Reserve or defunding NPR and PBS. Now, this might sound extreme to a lot of people, but Duke professor Mac McCorkle says it may be within the president's powers to do so.
Where the executive branch is completely under the control of the president. So even though you might have an agency that Congress would call independent, they would argue that anything that is in the executive branch is completely under the control of the president.
That's why Project 2025 calls to reassign 50,000 civil servants as at-will employees who would work directly for the president and could be fired by the president. Trump has a similar idea. He calls his Schedule F. This allows the president to fire career civil servants without cause. He signed an executive order on this in 2020, but he left office before it could be enacted and says if he wins, he's going to bring it back.
First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively.
Now, this sort of thing scares a lot of people, to think of the president with the ability to wield this kind of power. But it's a bit more complicated than that. For instance, President Kennedy and his brother, they used this concept to justify their use of the DOJ to enforce civil rights violations back in the 60s. Now, in that case, most people aren't going to argue that it was a bad thing, but it did set a famous precedent of these king-like powers unrelated to war coming from the president. Now, of course, we are not king people here, are we? We do have some safeguards in our Constitution, one called the Administrative Procedure Act. This basically says when the government or the president makes a big move, has a big idea, well, they have to have a reason. They have to have a why. And it's why the Supreme Court blocked Trump's plan to deport Dreamers in the DACA ruling. Do you remember this? They cited the APA in that ruling. In the decision, Justice Roberts wrote, "Here we address only whether the administration complied with the procedural requirements in the law, then insist on a reasoned explanation for its action." So here's what I'm getting at with all of this. You got one part of our Constitution that implies that the president can have absolute power. Then you have this other part that says, but only with a valid reason. And while you and I could argue about that gray area in between all day long, it will be the courts who ultimately decide. And you probably remember that this Supreme Court is the one that just ruled that the president has broad immunity from prosecution. This was a historic win for proponents of presidential power. Though I will say this trilogy of reports, unfortunately, doesn't end with a lot of clear answers because we do not know what will happen next. We don't know if Trump will win. We don't know what he would do if he did win. We don't know what challenges would be in his way or what the courts would ultimately decide. But what we do know is that as these doors continue to be pushed open, they will stay open for this president and the next one and the next one and so on, becoming nearly impossible to close. Let me know what you think. Email me at dan@WRAL.com. Tell me what is on your mind and we'll go in depth.
Raleigh police looking for a man who used a stolen car to smash into a vape store. It was all caught on security video. The car was stolen from a North Raleigh home last Thursday. Shortly after midnight, it was used to break into Nonstop Tobacco and Vape. The car's owner, Rachel Kincaid, says she fell asleep early and forgot to close the garage door. She also left her keys inside her car. The shop owner says he's on the hook for about $7,000 worth of damage because he didn't have the proper insurance when this happened. Let's take a live look now at South Hill, Virginia. Kat, I understand South Hill is still under some of the advisories that you were talking about.
Exactly. They're under that threat for 60-mile-an-hour winds. Of course, as you can see in the image there, the storm has not arrived yet, but it's coming your way. And we have this threat of late night storms even into the overnight hours once again. So don't be surprised if you hear some loud rumbles of thunder in Raleigh right now. And a live look at the Natural Sciences Museum. A bit more cloud cover out there again this evening. We did reach the 90s today. And Mecklenburg County, Virginia, that severe thunderstorm warning is in effect until 7:45. So you've got about 25 minutes left in the morning. The primary hazard, damaging straight line winds. There was previously some rotation within that storm, but it is since weakened. And elsewhere, things are pretty quiet. Just a few stray showers out there right now. But storm chances are going up during the late night hours to 60%. And then they're going to go up again as we head into tomorrow, starting in the morning, actually. Not everybody's going to have rain around for the morning commute, but there will be a risk for flooding tomorrow. That flooding risk is a medium risk. Taking a look at the morning, temperatures are in the 70s. We've got about a 30% chance of storms at 6 a.m. By 10 a.m., that chance looks quite a bit higher. It's cloudy out there. Highs only reach near 80 tomorrow. Just goes to show what an interesting day it is. Not our typical July day. It'll be an overcast day, a less hot day, and then we start out with some rain in the morning. The best chance of that, given that this is all coming from Alabama and Georgia, would be that it arrives first in the Sandhills in the morning hours. Check in with meteorologist Amy Wilmoth before you leave the house. We've got an active radar expected for at least some of us during the morning commute, so leave a little extra time to check in for that update. Lunchtime, Pretty widespread showers and storms on the radar. It's not 100% coverage, but about a 70 to 80% chance. And then during the afternoon, we'll continue to see these scattered storms. But there are some signs that we could actually quiet down a bit by tomorrow evening and tomorrow night. And then Friday, the front's still close enough by that we could see some scattered storms. Looking ahead to the weekend, we are drying out. It looks pretty good for the weekend. Highs are in the upper 80s. Lows are actually a bit more comfortable as well, dipping back into the 60s by the weekend. Next week, scattered storm chances return. After all, it is July and August. We expect to see that this time of year, but not quite as wet of a pattern as this week.
Kat, with all the dry temperatures, dry weather on Saturday and Sunday, it's like you organized it that way.
I wish I could say I did.
Thank you. We'll give you credit anyway.
Still ahead, while the Panthers are on top of a new list for all the wrong reasons.
The opening ceremony of the 2024 Paris Olympics, now just one day, 16 hours away.
It's going to be here before you know it.
I know. We're all getting pretty excited about this action.
So we are going to be on top of all of it. Live coverage starting Friday until August 11th right here on WRAL. You can look for live reports from Paris throughout the competition at 6 a.m., 6 p.m., and 11 p.m. Ooh, the Carolina Panthers. Their training camp started today, and it may come as no surprise, but the Panthers have the most miserable fans in the NFL.
That's according to a new survey that looked at fan happiness of every professional team. It found that 65% of Panthers fans believe there's no chance the team will make it to the Super Bowl. Fans say they aren't happy with the team's current players and games are too expensive or not enjoyable. Bad news, games are only going to get more expensive. Yeah. Odds makers say the team has a 300-to-1 chance of making the championship.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Taking a live look at the White House right now, we're in about 30 minutes. President Biden will address the nation for the first time since announcing he is dropping out of the presidential race.
The Oval Office address is set to begin at 8 o'clock tonight. You can watch it right here on WRAL. Meantime, former President Trump is still on stage in Charlotte. All of this wrapped up for you tonight on our news.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.